All right, let's dive into the life of Aristotle and Onassis. Talk about living large, right? Private islands, a yacht like a floating palace, a fortune built on, well, let's just say he pushed the boundaries.
What's fascinating is we're going beyond the typical biography. We're using the Enneagram, a personality typing system, to understand Onassis, specifically the self-preservation type 7.
So it's like we've got a unique tool to decode him, get inside his head, and figure out what drove him.
Exactly. And the self-preservation type 7, all about maximizing pleasure, ensuring their own security, and avoiding pain or boredom at all costs. They take it to the extreme.
And Onassis's lifestyle seems like a perfect fit.
Absolutely. Look at his yacht, the Christina O. Not just transportation, it was a stage for lavish parties, hosting the world's elite, Winston Churchill, Maria Callas. He created a world where boredom couldn't exist.
And then there's Scorpios, his private island. Like he was building his own personal paradise, completely insulated from any discomfort. For a self-preservation 7, owning a private island isn't just about luxury. It's about crafting a world where discomfort, a major fear for this type, simply doesn't exist.
Precisely. This need for control, to create an environment perfectly suited to his desires, a key characteristic of the self-preservation 7, and this aversion to boredom, also played out in Onassis's business ventures. Not content with just shipping, he needed to diversify, to keep things stimulating. Aviation, oil, media, you name it.
He was like the ultimate entrepreneurial multitasker, huh? Always chasing that next big thrill.
Another hallmark of this type. Constant diversification to avoid routine, to stay ahead. But it wasn't just about pleasure, right? He was also incredibly strategic about how he built his empire. The sources paint him as a master networker, someone who deeply understood the power of alliances.
Yeah, his relationships were almost like another business asset, especially his high-profile marriages, like Jacqueline Kennedy. I mean, it wasn't just a love story.
No, his marriages, especially to Jacqueline Kennedy, were calculated moves to elevate his social status, open doors to greater power and influence.
It's almost like he saw relationships as a way to further secure his position, gain access to new opportunities.
He understood having powerful connections, being seen with the right people, could pave the way for business success. And he was willing to leverage those relationships to his advantage.
And don't forget, his connections to figures like John F. Kennedy and Winston Churchill, he wasn't just casually bumping into these guys, actively cultivating relationships to benefit his business interests.
This showcases the self-preservation 7's resourcefulness. It's not just about seeking pleasure, it's about ensuring that pleasure is always attainable, no matter the cost. And that brings us to Onassis's risk-taking side. This desire for control and excitement, not limited to his personal life, fueled his bold moves in business as well. He wasn't someone who shied away from a gamble.
No, definitely not. Look how he built his shipping empire. Saw an opportunity in the chaos after World War II, bought up surplus ships at bargain prices. He knew the demand for oil transport would boom, and he was perfectly positioned to capitalize.
He was a master at turning chaos into opportunity. It was a bold move, paid off massively. And then there's his rivalry with Stavros Niarchos, serious cutthroat competition.
Oh, absolutely. Onassis was known for his audacious, even aggressive business tactics. He definitely wasn't afraid to push the limits of what was considered ethical. That's impressive, but also a bit ruthless, wouldn't you say? Where do you draw the line between ambition and exploitation?
Well, that's where things get a little complicated. You see, for all his brilliance and success, Onassis wasn't exactly a saint. There's a darker side to the self-preservation type 7, what Claudio Naranjo, a key figure in Enneagram research, calls fraudulence, and Onassis's life. A fascinating case study.
Okay, I'm really intrigued by this fraudulence. Seems like a key to understanding the darker side of Onassis's success. Can you explain that further?
Of course. Naranjo uses fraudulence to describe a tendency in self-preservation 7s to manipulate situations and people, to ensure their own comfort and avoid pain, like they're willing to bend or break the rules if it means maintaining their lifestyle and avoiding any unpleasantness.
So how did this fraudulence play out in Onassis's life?
Well, one example is flags of convenience. Onassis registered his fleet under flags of countries like Panama and Liberia.
Clever, but not exactly playing by the rules. Why would he do that?
Meant he could avoid stricter labor laws and taxes in his home country, maximizing profits. It's a clever strategy, but definitely raises ethical questions. He was willing to exploit the system to maintain his lavish lifestyle and avoid any financial discomfort.
This reminds you that charm and charisma can be powerful tools, But they can also be used to manipulate, right?
Exactly. And we see this manipulation extend to his personal relationships as well. He had a tendency to use people, romantically and professionally, as stepping stones to achieve his goals.
So it's not just about achieving success. It's about the methods used to get there.
Precisely. Onassis' story highlights the complexities of the self-preservation seven. This type can be incredibly ingenious and visionary, but also prone to self-serving manipulation and a disregard for ethical boundaries.
It sounds like that line between brilliant strategist and master manipulator can get pretty blurry with this personality type.
Yeah.
But we're just scratching the surface here, right? There's a lot more to uncover about Onassis and this darker side of his success.
Onassis' life, it's a really compelling example. Ambition, the pursuit of pleasure taken to extremes, can lead to disregarding ethical boundaries.
It's like his philosophy was the ends justify the means, but taken to a whole other level.
Precisely. And Naranjo's description of the self-preservation seven having these mafia-like tendencies really comes to life when you look at Onassis' beginnings.
You mean his early days smuggling tobacco in Argentina? Pretty risky way to start a career.
It was. But Onassis, he made his first fortune through those smuggling operations, demonstrating a willingness to operate outside the law right from the start.
So even then, he was showing signs of this fraudulence that Naranjo talks about.
Absolutely. Reveals a pattern, a comfort with bending the rules, even breaking them, to achieve his goals. And these mafia-like tendencies, they went beyond smuggling.
What do you mean?
Well, Onassis didn't work alone. He cultivated relationships with corrupt officials and used those connections to get preferential treatment, secure contracts he might not have gotten otherwise.
So he was a master manipulator even back then, using whatever it took to get ahead.
Incredibly savvy. He understood how to work the system, exploit any advantage he could find, and he wasn't afraid to form alliances that were, well, primarily self-serving, his own gain above all else.
It's fascinating how these patterns, this manipulation, this exploitation, it pops up again and again throughout his life.
It speaks to the power of the Enneagram. As a tool to understand personality, these core motivations, these fears, the self-preservation sevens need to avoid discomfort, to maximize pleasure. They drive our actions, even if we're not fully aware of them.
So Onassis built this incredible empire, achieved this incredible success, but it sounds like it came at a cost.
Absolutely. And that's where fraudulence becomes crucial to understanding him. He crafted this public image. It masked the darker aspects of his operations.
Hiding in plain sight. He presented himself as this sophisticated businessman, this generous philanthropist, but at the same time engaging in practices that were, let's be honest, ethically questionable.
Master of perception, his lavish lifestyle, his elite friends, his charitable donations, all contributed to this carefully curated persona.
But behind that facade, a much more complicated story.
Exactly. And this duality, this contrast between the public image and the private reality, a key struggle for the self-preservation seven. Their constant pursuit of pleasure, avoiding pain, it can lead to a disconnect from their own integrity.
Like they're making a deal with the devil, trading a piece of their soul for that satisfaction of getting what they want.
Powerful way to put it. And that's the central question with Onassis. Did his pursuit of pleasure and security ultimately compromise his moral compass?
It's so complex. On one hand, this brilliant entrepreneur achieved extraordinary success, but on the other hand, someone willing to extort others, to manipulate the system, to get ahead.
And that tension, this interplay of brilliance and ethical ambiguity, that's what makes Onassis so captivating to study.
A man of contradictions, a master of reinvention, always one step ahead.
But his story is a cautionary tale, too. The pursuit of success, even achieved through extraordinary means, can leave a trail of moral compromises.
Makes you think, was Onassis ever truly happy? Did all that wealth and power, did it actually bring him fulfillment? Or did it leave him feeling empty?
We can only speculate. But what we can learn is that true fulfillment, it probably doesn't come from relentlessly chasing external gratification. It probably comes from cultivating inner integrity, aligning your actions with your values.
It's a powerful lesson. It challenges us to examine our own motivations, the choices we make in pursuit of our goals.
Onassis' story, it's like a mirror, reflecting back the potential consequences of unchecked ambition, highlights the importance of finding that balance between our drive for success and our commitment to living an ethical life.
It reminds us that true success isn't just about what we achieve, it's about how we achieve it.
And that resonates deeply, no matter what path we choose in life. So where do we go from here? What can we take away from this exploration of Onassis?
Feels like we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack
Yeah.
about this complex and fascinating person.
I think the biggest takeaway is understanding that even the most dazzling success stories, they can have a darker side. And by examining those shadows, those ethical complexities, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the choices we make.
It's like a call to action, to be more mindful of the impact our actions have on others and to find that balance between ambition and integrity.
And it reminds us, true fulfillment isn't about acquiring wealth and power. It's about living a life that's authentic and aligned with our deepest values.
This has been incredibly insightful, but I feel like there's more to explore.
There is. We've only just begun to delve into this fraudulence, the ethical implications of Onassis's actions, and that's where we'll pick up next time. We'll examine the shadow side of this drive for pleasure and security, and we'll discuss strategies for integrating these insights into a more balanced and fulfilling life.
Over these last two parts, we've been digging deep into Aristotle and Onassis, using that Enneagram Type 7 lens, right, to understand him, his choices.
We've seen how his desire for pleasure, for security, those Type 7 drives, they fueled his success, but also led to some questionable decisions.
Like he was always chasing that next high, always looking for more.
And that's a challenge for this type, that craving. It can become a trap, this cycle of excess, and they never really feel fulfilled.
So how can someone like that, with this need for constant gratification, break free?
Self-awareness is key. First, they've got to acknowledge the shadow side. Recognize how their pursuit of pleasure might be hurting others.
Facing those tough truths about themselves, even admitting to some, well, less than admirable things.
Exactly. And cultivating mindfulness, learning to pause before acting impulsively. Remember, self-preservation sevens, they often operate from that I want it all and I want it now mindset.
So slowing down,
Well,
savoring the moment, appreciating what they have instead of chasing the next big thing.
precisely. Shifting the focus from acquiring, consuming, to appreciating, connecting
Connecting with what?
with others, with deeper values, a sense of purpose. Beyond just personal gratification, true fulfillment, it rarely comes from possessions or fleeting experiences. It comes from meaningful relationships, contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Transforming that me focus to a we focus.
You could say that, finding joy in giving back, making a positive impact.
That's where their true potential lies, right?
Yeah.
Channeling their enthusiasm, their resourcefulness towards something aligned with their values.
Absolutely, then they become a force for good. And, even Onassis, with all his complexities, he showed glimpses of this later in life.
Oh, how so?
He got more involved in philanthropy. And there are stories about him expressing regret for some of his past actions. It suggests that even those who stray, they can find their way back to integrity.
That's encouraging. It reminds us we all have the capacity for growth, right? For change, no matter our personality, our past mistakes.
Never too late to look at our choices, make amends, strive to live a life that reflects our values.
So, wrapping up our deep dive into Onassis, what final thought would you leave our listeners with?
I'd encourage them to think about balance in their own lives. Are they pursuing their goals in a way that's, sustainable, ethical? Are they using their gifts to make a positive difference? We should all ask ourselves these questions.
Finding that sweet spot between ambition and integrity. Chasing our dreams, but not harming others along the way.
Exactly. True fulfillment isn't fleeting. It's about a life that's meaningful, purposeful.
Well said. And on that note, we'll bring this deep dive to a close. We hope you've enjoyed exploring Onassis and the complexities of the self-preservation Type 7.
Thanks for joining us. Remember, self-discovery, it's a journey. Keep exploring, keep learning, keep striving to be your best self.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those hearts open.